all of this excitement about what's going on in the repo market, what's going on with short-term funding.
Here's BMO. What on earth is going on in repo markets?
Repos are hitting the market hard, and the banks are refusing to sell for these absurd reasons. This is not just a simple case of supply and demand. It's about strategy and a fundamental distrust of the current market. So, what's really behind this sudden spike in repos, and how does it impact you? Are we talking about potential drops in vehicle values coming your way soon? The untold story. Repos are basically temporary loans where one party sells an asset to another, expecting to buy it back later. But here's the kicker. The sheer number of these repos is turning heads in the financial world. Banks could totally cash in on this opportunity to boost their inventory and liquidity, yet they're playing it close to the vest and hoarding their assets. What's truly baffling, though, is the rationale some financial institutions are offering. It's almost as if they're echoing the sentiment of a conspiracy theory, claiming that the market might be destabilized or that selling current repos could somehow expose them to unforeseen risks. Seriously, these explanations just lead to more questions. Are they actually worried about the market's future, or is there something more going on under the surface? What's the real story here? Let's dig into it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. So why are banks holding back? Many banks seem to have a relentless drive when it comes to recovering as much money as possible from their repossessed assets. And you know what? Who can really blame them for that? It's only natural for any business to want to squeeze every last penny from their investments. However, there exists a fine line between strategic profit seeking and establishing expectations that stray far from reality. When banks set their sights high for the top dollar amounts, they risk creating a dangerously wide disconnect with current market demand that could have serious repercussions. Let's talk about the profound impact of this approach. Instead of quickly turning over their vehicle stock, banks often find themselves caught on a treadmill of missed opportunities. Imagine this for a moment. A bank holding onto vehicles that could have been sold just sits in limbo. No one wants to see their hard-earned assets turn into mere decorations. While it's commendable to aim for the best possible price, if it's not justified in the current market context, it flies in the face of practical sales strategies. Those vehicles that might have easily found new homes become liabilities instead, just gathering dust on the lot like forgotten toys in the back of a cluttered closet. Things take a turn for the worse when we factor in what happens when these cars linger unsold for extended periods. This situation creates a devastating chain reaction that no one wants to be a part of. The longer these cars sit around, the more their perceived value diminishes. Picture it as a ticking time bomb for inventory. Every second counts, and time is certainly not on their side. Those once promising vehicles, seen as valuable assets, start to morph into stagnant relics of poor pricing strategies, quietly losing their edge. It's an avoidable tragedy that so many banks seem blissfully unaware of, or perhaps they're simply unwilling to accept the reality staring them in the face. Price shock. Now let's talk about the prices, many of which sit stubbornly above current market values. A glaring red flag if you ask me. It creates a massive barrier to successful sales that nobody wants to tackle. Picture this, a potential car buyer, excited and ready to dive into the purchasing process, suddenly confronted with inflated price tags that practically cause whiplash. You'd swear those price tags came with a neon not for sale sign, sending eager buyers running for the hills in sheer panic. It's one thing to be enthusiastic about buying a car, it's another to be met with an unyielding price that seems to mock your interest. Those inflated costs don't just make wallets cringe, they can erect a psychological wall so high that even the most interested buyers hesitate to step over it. When banks stubbornly refuse to adjust their pricing to reflect the realities of the market, they are, in effect, casting not just themselves but those poor, sad vehicles into a never-ending cycle of stagnation. The longer these cars are left unsold on the lot, the more their value tends to plummet in the face of the larger shifts in the market landscape. They morph from tantalizing sales opportunities into mere liabilities, dragging down the overall inventory value for everyone involved in this circus. And let's not lose sight of the frustration that bubbles beneath the surface. Banks often overlook the glaringly obvious fact that genuine sales require some level of adaptability. The market isn't stagnant, it's a dynamic ecosystem that shifts and sways, influenced by consumer demand, purchasing power, and countless other factors. Failing to recognize or adapt to these changes can lead to devastating consequences. Those cars that could have sold rapidly instead become burdens, languishing in limbo, collecting dust, while frustrated dealers find themselves under increasing increasing pressure to move metal. Why does all of this matter? Because the way banks establish their prices doesn't just affect their own balance sheets. It resonantly impacts the entire market ecosystem. This isn't a mere ripple. It's more like shockwaves that ripple through consumers, dealers, manufacturers, and everyone else who plays a part in the automotive dance. The stakes are extraordinarily high. If banks remain oblivious to this essential aspect and fail to take action to remedy their pricing strategies, we risk a domino effect where everyone involved stands to lose. Big time. This situation is even trickier when you consider how interconnected the entire market is. Let's break it down. When banks hold on to unreasonable prices, it doesn't just impact their sales. It ripples out to affect the entire car buying ecosystem. Consumers may take their business elsewhere or delay purchases altogether, which leads to dwindling sales not just for banks, but for dealers and manufacturers as well. You remember that dealer down the street? The one you've grown fond of over the years? When banks don't play ball with flexible pricing, they unwittingly unleash a negative chain reaction, pushing everyone into a tight corner. And how about the dealers? You know those hardworking folks hustling on the front lines, trying to make connections and build relationships. They bear the brunt of these inflated bank prices. When customers are cautious and apprehensive, it puts dealers in an uncomfortable position. They want to close deals, but they're saddled with the psychological burden of fighting against outrageous price tags dictated by banks that refuse to budge. It is a tough spot. They're caught in the middle, squeezed between the bank's rigid policies and consumers' expectations for fair pricing. The aftermath. Think about it. As these unsold vehicles continue to collect dust, banks may start to lose their credibility as trustworthy sellers. If a consumer continuously finds vehicles stuck in the lot, they might begin to wonder what's wrong with those cars. Are they lemons? What's the deal, really? This could lead to a significant negative perception towards not only the individual bank, but the entire market they represent. When buyers start to question the integrity of your inventory, you're facing an uphill battle that can be incredibly tough to recover from. Moreover, there's an interesting psychological aspect at play here. When prices remain stubbornly high, it can actually demotivate potential buyers. Think about your own experiences. Ever walked into a store, spotted something you liked, but then recoiled upon seeing the price? It's disheartening. Thanks to that experience, you might not even consider asking for that item, or perhaps in the case of cars, making the leap of purchasing one. This hesitation can permeate the atmosphere, developing a sense of distrust that is hard to shake off. It transforms the shopping experience from one of excitement and anticipation to one of confusion and reluctance. When your inventory prices don't align with what the market is willing to pay, it becomes a gamble, and no one wants to roll the dice on an investment that feels shaky at best. Think about the implications of that. If banks remain fixed in their ways, they're not only jeopardizing immediate sales opportunities, but also their long-term viability. The automotive landscape is dynamic and not a fixed dimension. It ebbs and flows, influenced heavily by consumer preferences, economic conditions, and, let's not forget, competition. So how can banks continue to operate with outdated mindsets? It is also crucial to think about the repercussions beyond the banks themselves. When patterns of stagnant inventory emerge, the effects ripple through the market. Consumers seeking mid-tier prices may end up taking their business elsewhere, leveraging the competition's flexibility to secure fair deals elsewhere. So while banks think they'll secure a singular higher value today, they might actually be driving consumers into a competitive dealer's arms, where flexibility reigns supreme. This is the reality of a changing market. Adapt or be left behind. The reality of repossessed vehicles at auctions today is nothing short of shocking. We are staring down a significant backlog that reveals some serious economic issues brewing just under the surface. This isn't merely a bump in the road. The magnitude of this situation demands our undivided attention. Let's focus on two pivotal factors that encapsulate this crisis. How bad is it? Let's talk about the overwhelming inventory that's suffocating the auction market. Can you believe that Copart has roughly 1,048 repossessed vehicles just sitting there waiting for someone to take them home? That's right, over 1,000 cars that are effectively homeless, each one a testament to unmet dreams and opportunities that have evaporated. This backlog highlights not just the staggering number of unsold vehicles, but it also adds fuel to the fire of chaos in the auction space. Imagine a sprawling lot choked with cars, all looking for an exit, each representing a story of financial misfortune and lost potential. But hold on, because this isn't just a local issue, it's part of a concerning trend sweeping the nation. Data from Cox Automotive tells a grim story. Repossessions shot up by an unbelievable 23% during the first half of 2024 compared to the same period last year. What does this mean for us? It signifies that more people are falling behind on their auto loans amid soaring living costs and stubbornly high interest rates. It paints a disconcerting picture of the struggles many families are enduring, caught in this financial maelstrom. Now let's talk about the historical context. The current repossession figures stand out even more drastically. Right now, the repossession rate isn't just hovering at a concerning elevation, it's vaulting way above the levels we saw before the pandemic. Back in 2019, during the same time frame, the rate sat around 14%. Fast forward to today, and the steep rise over the past 18 months sends a chilling message about the economic pressures many borrowers are facing. This situation isn't merely about statistics, it's deeply personal, highlighting the lives of those impacted by these harsh realities. This growing backlog isn't just a blip on the radar, it reflects the significant challenges consumers are grappling with today. Consider the ripple effects. This scenario isn't just a headache for dealerships and banks, but it dramatically affects the everyday individual striving to make ends meet. For many, missing a car payment can trigger a repossession, and this vicious cycle breeds chaos in an already overwhelmed market. Each vehicle caught in this limbo tells a story of struggle, dashed hopes, and escalating financial woes. The repercussions of this situation extend far beyond mere numbers. They point to a looming crisis resonating through our economy. If repossessions persist in their upward trajectory, the backlog of vehicles at auctions will continue to swell, creating a mountain of inventory that's not only tough to manage, but disheartening for dealers and potential buyers. As car prices remain exorbitantly high and buyers hesitate, these formidable challenges are only magnifying. So what lies ahead for this tumultuous market? Will banks and dealerships find their footing and adapt to this new reality? Let's break it down. Market dynamics. We're diving into a real dilemma here, the distressing clash between soaring prices and a noticeable decline in buyer interest. Picture this, a perfect storm brewing that complicates sales in ways we can hardly ignore. When prices escalate beyond what prospective buyers are willing to spend, we're often left with a palpable dip in interest that's hard to overlook. Imagine potential buyers strolling through a dealership lot only to be confronted by sky-high price tags that feel like an insurmountable obstacle slamming the door right in their hopeful faces. It's a genuinely unfortunate reality that results in many vehicles being condemned to idle status, collecting dust as they wait for a buyer who may never come knocking. But hold on a second, this situation is about more than just numbers on a page. Let's take a moment to really consider the broader economic conditions at play here, all influencing buyer behavior in ways that we can't dismiss. Think about this, when consumers start perceiving a sense of uncertainty in the economy, their instincts kick into high gear. They instinctively pull back from making significant purchases, particularly when those purchases come with hefty price tags. In an instant, what once seemed like a dream car suddenly transforms into a luxury that feels utterly out of reach. Financial constraints loom large in the minds of potential buyers. It's not merely about what they desire, but more about what they can realistically afford. In times of economic pressure, buying a car can feel like a risky gamble, one that many simply choose not to take. If you think about it, this entire situation doesn't just affect individual transactions. The ramifications are far-reaching. As inventory takes longer to move off dealership lots, it doesn't merely strain sales numbers, it creates a ripple effect that can send shockwaves throughout the entire market ecosystem. Think of it this way, dealerships may soon find themselves knee-deep in stagnant stock that just refuses to budge. This unfortunate reality leads to mounting pressure on them to cut prices, which can also create a domino effect. You see, when prices drop, it has the potential to harm the perceived value of the remaining inventory. Suddenly, the vibrant hustle and bustle of buying a car can morph into a slow crawl, significantly reducing overall market energy and momentum. But here is the real kicker. This economic environment ends up leaving both buyers and sellers stuck in a real pickle. On one hand, buyers are chomping at the bit for great great deals, while on the other, sellers grapple with the monumental challenge of making sales in such a difficult climate. Everyone's sitting on the sidelines, each party trying to navigate this precarious dance that neither side can seem to break free from. Left unresolved, this dynamic can lead straight into a prolonged cycle of stagnation, where no clear way out seems to be on the horizon. The gamble of ownerships. So what is really going on inside the heads of buyers right now? Well, when faced with these inflated prices, many potential car owners feel their dreams dashed. They may start looking elsewhere or simply delay their purchasing decisions altogether. We're witnessing a total shift in the purchasing landscape, and a sense of frustration is mounting on the side of both buyers and dealerships. It is like everyone is trapped in a game of musical chairs, and when the music stops, no one seems to have a seat. Buyer sentiment is critical here. When consumers experience pressures that make them reconsider their financial decisions, buying a vehicle can quickly shift from being an exciting adventure to a nerve-wracking gamble. Because let's face it, if someone's uncertain about their financial situation, spending tens of thousands of dollars on a car feels monumental, and suddenly it's a much harder decision to make. So the question arises, what can sellers do to make buyers feel confident in their purchasing choices? Dealerships should start looking into smarter strategies that can help bridge this troubling gap between what buyers are willing to pay and what sellers are asking. By conducting thorough market analyses and gaining an understanding of current market dynamics, they can help facilitate healthier transaction pathways. Offering flexible financing options or introducing attractive promotions can help pave the way for hesitant buyers to come forward, resulting in a win-win for both parties involved. Additionally, as prices continue to loom high, dealerships might consider reevaluating their pricing strategies altogether. It's essential to embrace the idea that a lower price doesn't necessarily diminish the value of the vehicle. Instead, it could well result in a sale. This approach could invigorate the market and encourage buyers to re-enter the vehicle marketplace with a renewed sense of optimism. The future of auto sale. As we delve deeper into the current economic strain, it becomes abundantly clear that we are experiencing a financial perfect storm fueled by the relentless forces of ongoing inflation and persistently high interest rates. The statistics are staggering. Projections indicate that by the end of this year, we could witness over 1.5 million vehicles being reclaimed by lenders. If this path continues unimpeded, we should brace ourselves for a significant escalation in the backlog of unsold vehicles flooding the auction market. As more vehicles are repossessed, we will likely spiral into a vicious cycle. This increase in repossessions will lead to inflated inventory levels at auctions, driving prices down even further. It's a ticking time bomb, and we are standing right beside it. Now, let's shift our attention to the inventory management challenges that dealerships and auction houses are currently grappling with. Imagine this: lots overflowing with unsold vehicles. The congestion is palpable, resulting in logistical nightmares that impact everyone involved. Take Copart, for instance, one of the major players in the auction market. Right now, they have around 1,048 repossessed vehicles sitting idle, waiting for their moment to find a new home. The sheer volume of cars waiting in limbo creates a bottleneck that makes effective inventory management a Herculean task. Dealers in this environment might feel the pressure to implement aggressive pricing strategies just to start clearing out this overwhelming stockpile. If they don't act swiftly, they risk being trapped beneath a mountain of vehicles that refuse to sell. But that's not the end of it. Let's talk about the stagnation of sales, which acts as a troubling symptom of overcrowded lots. Many of these vehicles are evolving into what can only be characterized as repeat offenders, sitting in limbo without any signs of moving off the lots. This stagnation paints a stark and grim picture for dealerships. As turnover rates decline, revenues begin to plummet. The problem is compounded when you consider that unsold inventory continues to pile up, racking up costs associated with storage and maintenance. This situation further strains the financial health of these businesses, leaving them gasping for stability. A market on edge. Banks and dealers alike are forced to reconsider their pricing structures in light of these daunting market realities. The unyielding stance of banks, coupled with their refusal to adjust prices downward, is creating significant hurdles for sales. If they cling too rigidly to outdated pricing models, they risk being locked into a cycle of stagnation that could ultimately choke the life out of their businesses. As inventory levels swell and consumer demand wilts, the pressure on prices is likely to intensify dramatically. Buyers looking for bargains may find themselves in a sweet spot, but for sellers, this scenario presents a double-edged sword. They may find themselves compelled to offload vehicles at a loss just to keep the wheels turning. The landscape is shifting rapidly. What once felt stable is now teetering, and all parties involved will need to pivot quickly or face dire consequences. Furthermore, we cannot afford to overlook the profound changes in consumer purchasing behavior. Economic uncertainty has prompted many would-be buyers to approach significant purchases, such as vehicles, with palpable caution. This shift in mindset may lead to a growing trend toward leasing options or opting for more budget-friendly alternatives, effectively transforming the landscape of the repossession market. As interest rates continue their upward climb, the escalating cost of borrowing is becoming an insurmountable barrier for many potential buyers, effectively discouraging them from entering the market at all. When buyers hesitate in this manner, the existing inventory issues become even more complicated, creating a ripple effect that could exacerbate the challenges already facing the industry. Now, imagine the scenario from a dealer's perspective. Stacks of unsold cars are piled high, taking up precious lot space, and each unsold car represents not just a missed sale, but also a growing weight on the dealership's financial ledger. With every passing day, the interest on loans for those vehicles piles up like snow, and the costs for maintaining these vehicles can be staggering. The longer they sit there, the more likely dealers are to feel inclined to drop prices to clear inventory. But what happens when the entire market shifts in a downward trend? As if this wasn't enough, competition is evolving, with a slew of financial institutions and independent dealers ready to cut prices to gain market share. The pressure is on for all parties to stay competitive. However, slashing prices without a sound strategy can be a dangerous game, leading to further losses and the potential for long-term damage to brand reputation. This is particularly concerning in a market where brand loyalty used to be king. Now let's consider the psychological impact this all has on consumers. With so much uncertainty in the air, buyers may find themselves second-guessing every decision they make. This indecision can lead to more prolonged hesitancy in purchasing, pushing potential buyers into the wait-and-see mode rather than taking decisive action. As a result, this stagnant behavior only contributes to the growing backlog of inventory. The evolving landscape also requires a fresh approach to dealing with customers. Effective communication and education can help mitigate fears and aid buyers in making better decisions. With inflation and interest rates affecting so many aspects of life, transparent discussions about financing options and the cost of ownership can help the buyers feel more at ease, fostering trust and potentially leading to sales where all seemed lost. The current landscape in the auto loan and vehicle repossession market is anything but stable. The intertwined challenges of high interest rates, stagnant sales, and evolving consumer behaviors create a complex environment that demands constant attention and adaptability from all parties involved. Those who can navigate this turbulent market with innovative strategies, open communication, and flexibility will have the best chance of thriving. The question looms, will the industry rise to the occasion, or will it buckle under pressure? The answer remains to be seen, but one thing is clear, it's going to be a wild ride ahead. Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the pricing strategies of banks? Do you believe they should adjust their prices to align more closely with market realities? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below.